Hello folks, and welcome to this week's roundup of all the happenings in World of Warcraft. This week saw the conclusion of World of Warcraft's premier event, the Race to World First, with Liquid Guild taking the crown in a well-deserved win, with Echo taking the second spot, followed by Mythic. And I, for one, offer them huge congratulations. Unfortunately, for many of us in the audience, the win was a bit of an anticlimax, with the final boss being defeated in only 103 pulls. The second lowest number since Mythic raiding began back in Warlords of Draenor, with only Xavius from the Emerald Dream and Legion being faster to fall. This was all a bit unexpected after the race saw a significant increase in several of the mid-raid bosses' difficulty levels, which had led to discussion about the potential of a 3-week race. And I suspect that even the Blizzard developers will be unsatisfied with the final boss, which was clearly a bit of a miss tuning-wise. For myself, like I suspect many in the audience, I don't watch a huge amount of the mid-race coverage, preferring to dip in once the final boss fight is well underway. And this time, that approach resulted in me completely missing the kill. Obviously, only Blizzard knows what happened behind the scenes, but I cannot help but wonder if the lack of public testing on Mythic Galliwick, combined with a flawed decision to focus on increasing the mid-raid difficulty, has backfired on Blizzard, which is a shame, as they were clearly trying something different by not including any of the details of that final boss Mythic fight in the dungeon journal. One thing I can say for sure is that it does not give me confidence that Blizzard are anyway close to being able to release major content like this without at least some public testing, an idea that in recent times has been often supported by the community. For the rest of us mere mortals, the conclusion of the race does mean some pretty substantial nerfs to the Mythic raid are coming, as Blizzard tunes it down to a level that's much more attainable by those guilds which are not able to spend 70-hour weeks raiding. And no doubt a lot of those changes will be informed by data obtained during the race. On the subject of nerfs, and Mythic Plus continues to benefit from a much more proactive approach from Blizzard compared to Season 1, with a further round of nerfs to some of the outliers in the pool. Unusually though, we also saw what was an effective buff to Darkflame Cleft, with a 2-minute reduction in its timer. Darkflame Cleft was the easiest dungeon to time, but Blizzard are always reluctant to increase difficulty like this, so it was still a bit of a surprise to see this adjustment. At the end of last week, we also got a bit of a nice surprise with the addition of a bonus half spark, which means that we have now had the option to craft a high-level gear piece for 2 weeks in a row. This decision, I suspect, was due to a bug that allowed some players to obtain an additional half spark. While this bug was intentionally exploited by some players, it was by its nature also pretty easy to run into by accident, so it appears that Blizzard decided to just take the hit and balance out what would otherwise have been an unfair advantage by allowing the rest of us to catch up. This decision has been especially welcome for players who have two-handed weapons, who otherwise have to wait 3 weeks before they can craft one. And I cannot help but think that perhaps letting us all have a full spark each week for the first 2 weeks before dropping down to effectively 1 per 2 weeks would offer a much better experience in future seasons. Certainly the sky does not seem to have fallen in this season, just because we could craft into 2 slots in the first 2 weeks. With the new patch zone of Undermine and the new season still being only a few weeks old, I suspect that many of us will feel like we have more than enough to be doing in-game. But if you don't, the Trial of Style is currently underway. This time around, we have a bunch of new sepia-toned head, shoulder and feet items, most of which are recolours from the trading post. The Trial of Style is active until the 27th, and during that time, transmogging our characters is free of charge. So this is a great time to do a loop around your warband and make sure that they all look their best. Moving over now to the patch 11.15 PTR, and this week's build focused on testing the new Dastardly Duos event, which is allowing us to get an early look at the feature, and it's fair to say it's proven to be a bit of a surprise. Dastardly Duos is a 6-week limited time event which will be launching partway through patch 11.15. In their announcement, Blizzard described it as allowing us in our party to take on animatronic versions of past bosses in pairs, making it sound kind of like a group-based Brawlers Guild. There is indeed a bit of a Brawlers Guild vibe about the event, including surprisingly the option to do it solo or in a group of 2 to 5 players. When you enter the event, event, you land in a waiting area where you can pick up potions and food with useful buffs. Or if you prefer more of a challenge, there's also a food option that will make you weaker in return for getting more score. If you go into the encounter solo or in a small group, you will be joined with the dungeon follower NPCs who will fill out any of the empty slots. But those followers are actually optional. You will be able to speak to an NPC and dismiss them, which will increase the difficulty of the encounter quite a bit. Once you enter the arena proper, you face what is essentially a mini boss rush fight with a 5-minute timer. First of all, you clear the area of ads, after which the bosses will start to spawn in groups of 2. One really cool aspect is that after you clear the ads, a few rings appear within the arena, and if you fight the bosses inside those rings, it buffs the bosses up, making the encounters harder but also allowing you to accumulate score at a higher rate. This provides you with multiple ways to adjust the difficulty of the fights, one of which, those rings that I just mentioned, you can use to change the difficulty on the fly, depending on how you feel about individual encounters. At the moment on the PTR, all of the encounters seem to consist of a single wave of trash followed by 2 sets of 2 bosses, but based on Blizzard's description, I am expecting that the number of boss waves is going to increase later on as the weeks go by. Rewards wise, I got Warband veteran gear from the end of encounter chest, and there's also a series of weekly quests which so far have awarded me toys and pets, along with a purse that contains more gear and currency. There is also a mount from the event, a tortoise called Tyranitar, which looks really cool. According to the in-game mount journal, this is from an achievement called Another Amazing Week. That achievement is not currently visible on the PTR, so we don't know the requirements, but my hope is that it's just for completing the final week set. I will of course do an update if and when we find out more, so do make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss that. I personally had a ton of fun doing the event on the PTR. In its baseline difficulty, that is with the NPC followers and all the food and potion buffs, the encounter is not super challenging, being similar to maybe a normal dungeon boss. But dismiss those NPC followers and things do heat up a fair bit. It's not Mage Tower levels of difficulty. This event is designed to be a lot faster paced. Instead, it feels much closer to the BFA Brawlers Guild, but with slightly less complex mechanics. And that ability to fine-tune the difficulty to suit your goals and playstyle does give it the potential, I think, to have very broad appeal. I've seen quite a few people suggesting that this is a new take in the Brawlers Guild, and it certainly does have many similarities, providing a series of potentially solo boss encounters for mainly cosmetic rewards, but that similarity is in my view merely skin deep. The Brawlers Guild fights were single boss encounters that had raid-like mechanical complexity, whereas Dynamic Duos serves you up a series of fights which are mechanically closer to dungeon bosses, which does make sense. Trying to do raid-style fights as a boss rush would be pretty overwhelming, I think. The instance nature of the event also lacks the social element of a Brawlers Guild, where you could watch others fight, cheer them on, give them advice, or just meme around. While Blizzard offers plenty of options to group up in more organised content, the game doesn't currently do a lot to encourage incidental social interactions like the Brawlers Guild, and for me that means that this is a bit of a missed opportunity. Despite that concern, I had a blast in the PTR with this event, and providing Blizzard can successfully nail the tuning, this could potentially be a similar success to Plunderstorm. But this time around, it will be an event that will appeal to a much broader range of players. We don't currently have any firm dates on when this event will launch. Blizzard's initial announcement only says that it will be later in the patch 11.15 cycle, but there are a couple of clues around the timing. According to both the 2025 roadmap and the splash screen for patch 11.15, it's going to include an update for Children's Week, which is currently scheduled to begin in April the 28th. Which would mean that the PTR has to launch by April the 22nd at the latest, which just happens to be 8 weeks after patch 11.10's release, potentially marking a return to that 8-week patch cycle that we saw for much of Dragonflight, not to mention the start of the War Within. Currently in the PTR, the Horrific Visions event is listed as starting on May the 21st, but it also says it will end on the 22nd of May. And that end date is obviously wrong. but I have still seen some people in the community suggesting that May the 22nd could be the launch date of the patch. I'm personally doubtful that it will be as late as that. The calendar listing is clearly bugged, and a late May release date would leave Blizzard with another 4 patches, according to the roadmap, to fit into just 7 remaining months, meaning they would need to speed the release cycle up quite substantially. It is always possible that Blizzard could decide to delay Children's Week. In 2025, we did see both Hallow's End and Winter Veil being slightly delayed to match patch cycles. But nevertheless, I am sticking with my April 22nd prediction for the patch. This will include the Nightfall and Horrific Visions event, with Dastardly Duos launching either on the 6th of May to end with the 11.17 patch release, or perhaps a little later on May the 20th, which would leave it to overlap into the following patch. But that's just crystal ball gazing on my part. Until Blizzard make it official, they are of course free to change any of these dates. So what do you think? Can we expect a new patch before the end of next month? Or is that too soon, or maybe even too late? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this update interesting, then do hit that like icon to let me know. And if you want to support my channel, then do hit the subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss my videos when they go live. As well as my regular weekly news updates, I have a bunch of guides, reviews, previews and rants on the way. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.